All right, let's bring in our panel right now. Jeannie Zaino, professor of political science at Ona College and professor of campaign management at NYU. Busy young lady. Dominic Carter, political journalist.
Young, let's dress
and
young,
author.
Richard.
Hey. Noam Branson, Democratic mayor of New Rochelle. Also, you remember the 2013 Democratic nominee for Westchester County Exec. He joins us as well. Okay, Dom, you sat down with Norm Seabrook here. We saw part of that interview as well. Another front page story of the Times saying that, forget about that they can't get things right here. They're concealing information. Now, this is from a little while ago, but let's not make it sound like, I guess, that this was from the distant past. They got big problems. And now this has become the problems of this mayor. They got to clean the situation up.
Every few years, Richard, correction is an agency where, frankly, no one pays attention to it until the headlines flare up. And that's the stage we're at now. Every couple of years, things will bubble up where there's violence, inmate on inmate violence, or inmate on officer violence, or officer on inmate violence. And so you're dealing with a situation where there's an extremely powerful union. There's very little accountability, and the entire situation is a mess. You need a federal monitor of the New York City correction system. Now, one point I will concede to Mr. Seabrook that is very accurate, and he's very animated when he makes his points, and he says, Dominic, the guy that got on the bus and shot, just randomly shot people, do you think he's a choir boy once he gets to jail? Do you think he listens to correction officers once he gets to jail? So there is that point to that.
But you know what? I understand his dilemma, but Ms. Mayor, here's my problem. It's not even the union's fault. It's not even, but we warehouse our mentally ill now in prisons. More than 40% of the prison population shouldn't, I'm not saying they should be on the street, but they shouldn't be in the middle of general population. Either they're victimized or they're completely not on medication, and they're the ones, if you look at some of the numbers of the stabbings and everything else that's going on there, I mean, you had 1 month where they had more than 20 some odd stabbings behind the walls. And we're one of the few states that has our youth, our juvenile population, that we also put in an adult facility, if you will, or be in a different part of it. There seems to be so many factors here that it's a combustible situation just waiting to have trouble.
That's certainly true. And look, the prison population in the United States is far larger than any other country in the Western world. And that indicates something about how we approach criminal justice. And, you know, Dominic's right. Correction officers have an incredibly difficult job. And some of these inmates are clearly very tough customers. And you can understand how inmates as a group are not always the most sympathetic group. And so there may be a tendency to overlook some of these abuses. But in truth, having a humane criminal justice system is one of the marks of a civilized society. So we've all got a stake in making sure that this is done properly. And there's another factor, too, which is a little bit broader. And it is when the individuals or organizations who are being judged by a set of statistics are at the same time responsible for compiling and reporting those statistics, there's always going to be the potential for abuse, sometimes conscious, sometimes unconscious. And that's why it's important that there be some function that provides some independent oversight.
But we forget, Jeannie, this is a jail. Now, you have some people there that are waiting, getting transferred to a maximum security facility, but the guy who tried to kill himself was there for a misdemeanor. He couldn't make a $400 bond to get out on bail. He couldn't make bail. So he was there. He tried to hang himself in this particular case with his own underwear. He was all of 5'3", I think, at the time, 120 pounds or something. Handcuffed, beaten to the point by 6 people and 6 officers, and then to teach him a lesson, they drove him around for hours before he even got medical care. That doesn't happen in a vacuum. This happens in a place where, I think the mayor said it, if they're the judge and the jury at the same time and nobody is keeping an eye on them, what do you think happens here? And I'm just shocked after all the attention that has come out. People are still willing to try and bury this, thinking it's going to go away. It's not going to go away here until there's a resolution. We always see these things, right? Cut on the finding, and what do you think the consequences are going to be?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is not just New York City. This is a nationwide problem, and we've seen it over and over again. You cannot use your jails to deal with people's mental illness. That's part of the problem that's going on here. And I was so glad you played Dominic's interview with Norm Seabrook, because it's an amazing interview, and people should go back on YouTube YouTube and watch it, because it is a fascinating look at part of, you know, what these corrections officers are dealing with, and also what, you know, these inmates are dealing with, which is horrific. You know, part of the problem here is a no-win situation where we as a nation want to take people who are mentally ill, put them in jail, and that be the end of it. Well, that's not going to happen. You look at the poor case of that, you know, representative in Virginia whose son came and Deeds, you know, attacked him. A horrific situation where he couldn't find a bed for his, you know, 20-something-year-old boy.
And again, the wrapping me, Jeannie, to that point, Don, we'll bring this in full circle. We're talking about a jail here, okay? We're not talking about a maximum security facility. We've covered stories out of Sing Sing. But the one common denominator, whether it's a jail, minimum, medium, or maximum security, the guys are going to get out. And it's the cheapest investment we can do to at least try and get them, forget about better, don't make them worse inside, because they're going to come out. 98% of them are going to get out. And it's in our best interest, you know, not to basically create, you know, Thunderdome there behind the prison walls. So,
well, Richard, just I know we're short on time. Just one point I want to make: correction officers will tell you one of their frustrations, they are not trained. No training at all to deal with the mental illness aspect. So the inmates, sometimes the officers complain that people are put in for minor misdemeanors and they're thrown in Rikers Island, and they don't have their medication, and in some cases they're put in cells that can hit 130 degrees. One man literally baked to death on Rikers Island in his cell, that high-profile case that we covered. It is a mess. You're not going to clean this up internally. You've got to have the feds. Someone has got to come in that's not connected, to the mayor's point, with the system to clean this up. It is a mess.
And just
no one person
can clean this up. If you think it's only Rikers, you are kidding yourself. This is with a full page, a front page coverage of the New York Times in New York City. Do you imagine what's going on around this country? Because it's not just happening there. Okay, when we come back, we will switch gears. We're going to head to New York State, where a $500 million federal loan that would have helped pay for the new TZ bridge just fell through the cracks. What is next? And how much could the plan cost you? We're going to get into that.